Alrighty, folks. Hello, and welcome everyone back to Adobe Live. My name is VooDoo Val, and I'm joined here with my good friend Cody. Cody, how are you?
I'm doing great, Val. Thanks for having me on. Super excited to do the boot camp today.
Yeah, I know this is going to be such a blast. I'm super stoked to be here streaming again with Cody. We always have a lot of fun. And we are here for a boot camp stream. So today, Cody and I are going to be talking about how to find your style, the journey of finding your style when it comes to creating creative work and stuff. But real quick, for anyone who might not be familiar with us, with me or Cody, why don't you do a little intro of yourself, let folks know who you are and what you do. And I'm going to pop over here and let everyone see what you're working on for today. And you kind of tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Codi Bear, as I am known online. I do a lot of children's style illustration, and I am, like Val as well, a moderator for Adobe Live. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I'm going to be working on a werebear illustration because that is actually my Beartober prompt for my prompt list that I've been working on, which you can check out on my Instagram if you're interested in participating in that.
You will
And
not
Val,
be, you will really, I'm sorry, I gotta cut in. You will
it's
not
fine.
be disappointed with Cody Bear's Instagram. It's a great, wonderful place. Please follow
Oh,
it.
yes, please do. Yes, please participate in my list. And I was about to say, Val, please introduce yourself as well.
Hey,
Who are you?
hey. I'm Voodoo Val, and I do a lot of dark, spooky illustration. And I'm gonna pop over here and let you see what I'm working on today, because we're doing art at the same time today, folks. I'm working on an illustration today of Merv from the Sandman. Who is voiced by Mark Hamill in the TV show. So if you squint really hard, this is also Star Wars fan art. You know, I'm just putting that out there. But I'm like a dark fantasy illustrator. I'm also a moderator here on Adobe Live. We do a lot of nifty things here, Cody and I. Yeah, we're gonna kind of get into the meat of what we really want to talk about today because we are limited with our time. One of the things we're gonna start out. We're gonna peep what you're working on first, Cody. So you can go ahead and kind of jump in there. Um,
Sure.
so, finding your style. I think that this is something that a lot of us kind of wonder to ourselves. A lot of us kind of ask ourselves when it comes to sitting down to create our work. I think this is probably one of the most asked questions that I get in the chat myself. And for me personally, I feel like finding your style is one of those things that I used to agonize over all the time when I first began my creative career and started the journey into doing what I do. I think that's true for most of us. And I've come to find that finding your style, I think it really has a lot to do with basic fundamentals and
Mhm.
understanding what it is that you're trying to draw, because your own flair, your own style, your own flavor of art is going to shine through, I think, no matter what. But it's more difficult to see your unique creative voice when you don't have a good grasp on the fundamentals. How do you feel about that? That's just, that's my 2 cents on that. What do you think about it, Cody?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that nowadays, with social media, it can give a lot of pressure to make you feel like you have to find a style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people have a tendency to get caught up in that. I mean, myself included,
Oh yeah.
it's so easy to just see so many different styles online and so much different artwork. We're just inundated with so much different artwork every
Mm-hmm.
single day. And it kind of puts that pressure to oh, I need to get better. I need to find what makes me unique. Or
Mm-hmm.
and in that sense, it makes people feel the need that they want to copy other artists, like they find inspiration, which is a totally valid way of learning, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. I wanted to
Yeah.
throw that out there because when I was new to my artwork, before I kind of started refining my style, I copied other people's work, I traced people's work, and it kind of just helps you learn.
Mm-hmm.
But as you really start to learn those fundamentals, like Val was talking about, um, you start to figure out what what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always describe personal style as the culmination of all of these tiny little choices and problem solving techniques that you do while you are learning your work.
Oh yeah, that's a
Um,
great way to put it. That's a really great way to
yeah.
put it. I think that yeah, once you, for example, if I can, like give an example of this, I think that when it came to drawing faces, I love doing portraits. Portraiture is one of my most favorite things to paint or illustrate. And when I first started painting faces, I wanted to have a style. I wanted people to be able to kind of like look at my artwork and be like, "That's a Voodoo Val piece. That's it right there." And when I started out, everything I think I approached it so differently. I was uncomfortable with the subject matter and like um trying to make my style before I knew what it was that I was painting. I kind of skipped a lot
Mhm.
of those basic fundamental steps. And I struggled because I was like, okay, I want to paint an eye, and I did it differently every time. And it wasn't until I actually sat down and really looked at what it was that I was trying to draw. I really looked and tried to educate myself on the structure of an eye, the structure of the nose, the structure of the human skull, and all of those things. Once I understood that, then I wasn't working super hard to like try and make something stylized. I understood what it was I was trying to illustrate. And then once that step was out of the way and I wasn't terrified every time I sat down to paint something, then my style started to shine through. I started to really understand what it was I was setting out to do, and it came down to realizing that without all of that stress and stuff, I had creative freedom and the comfortability to express
Mhm.
that creative freedom, if that makes sense. And that
Yeah.
was that was the big thing, And so I found going forward in my creative journey too, whenever I'm really struggling to kind of make something look right, to make something look proper in my artwork, which happens often, no matter how far in my creative journey I get, I'm still coming to portions of my work where I'm doing something new, maybe something a little scary. I always find that I find a way to get over that hump and make something look like Voodoo Val's art if I stop and break it down to its base components and learn what it is that makes this look like a pot, or what is it is
Yeah.
that makes this look like a car or a face or a character or a certain pose or a certain gesture. Once I break it down to those base forms and then I go to approach it with more knowledge, then my creative expression kind of bleeds into how I now decide to visually interpret that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that this is something that I would really love to hear from you, because there's also, that doesn't mean that when you approach your art that you can't approach it with the intent to make something look very stylized too, right? It's not
Mhm.
like, forsake all adventures into stylized experimentation until you've gone through all the boring basics. You can still
Right.
approach work with the intent to be stylized. And I think that maybe you would be uniquely qualified to talk about that, Cody, because you have a very distinctive style. And you have in the past kind of talked about figuring out how exactly you wanted to portray characters, because yours, while mine can sometimes be semi-realistic or photorealistic, yours are hyper stylized to the point where you've kind of invented your own ways to or used unique ways to show perspective and to show anatomy
Mhm.
and all that stuff. So how did you go about kind of figuring out your style and making your own way with the basics? Like, how did that work for you?
So, I will say I'll preface this with the fact that I did not go to college for artwork at all. I am self-taught and internet taught.
Mhm.
So I had to kind of like really pave my own way and like really just like I basically just watched YouTube tutorials. I
Mhm.
taught myself artwork the whole way through up until this point.
Same.
And I I really found myself being kind of a lazy artist when it came to like doing gesture drawings and like properly learning perspective and anatomy, and I kind of would always be like really down on myself about that. And
Mhm.
then like I'll give an example of eyes on my characters. I have a tendency, if you're familiar with my work, I do a lot of dot eyes or
Mm-hmm.
Hershey kiss eyes, as I think I've
Hershey
heard
Kiss
them
eyes, I
called
love it.
in the industry. Hershey kiss eyes. The reason for that was because I tried so hard to draw a regular eye on a character and it just did not work out for me. I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm just going to draw a dot. And that's what worked for me. And funny enough, eventually it just became an iconic thing for
Mm-hmm.
my style. So, and that's what I go back to in saying, it's problem solving. It
Mm-hmm.
really comes down to problem solving and how an artist wants to approach things or how it like just works for you. Some if one thing isn't really working for you,
Mm-hmm.
just try maybe not try to force it so hard, like try to figure out what does work for you. Don't feel like you have to do it a certain way
Yeah.
if it's not working out, because I remember when I was younger and learning artwork, I would hear a lot from artists like, oh, you're supposed to do it this way. Like
Mm-hmm.
for gesture drawing, you're supposed to draw the body first.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I always draw the head first, and that's what works for me.
I
So,
do too.
um,
This is great. This is
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. So, I don't think that there should be rules like that. Like, oh, you're supposed to do it this way, because I think then you're stifling yourself
Mm.
in learning how drawing works naturally for you.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think, the basic gist there that I'm getting is like, I think we both agree, like learning those fundamentals and understanding what you're drawing is something that is like really a must have, but don't think that, if you start to feel, I guess, something where you're like, I think that it would feel super comfortable to do this kind of thing like this, or you have a passion or desire in you to illustrate something a certain way, I wouldn't ignore those urges. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I think there's a difference between um uh I guess, for example, I used to do this all the time. I would say, I don't need to paint hands because my style is drawing characters with hands in their pockets. I feel like a lot of
Hmm.
a lot of us have been there, and I think there's a difference between finding a new way to do something that works with your style and is unique to you and actually missing out on a learning opportunity. And I
Hmm.
think that figuring out when those times are and aren't is really going to be up to you to discern as you go through and gain more experience doing things. But really, I think it's kind of it's a balance, right? Of like
Hmm.
learning what you need to learn, understanding the subject matter that you're trying to understand, and allowing yourself the freedom to elaborate on certain experiments as you go through. I did
Yeah.
the same thing with hair because I believed, as I was going through trying to learn these basic fundamentals, I was like, if I'm going to paint hair, I have to paint every strand. I have to make everything look super incredible. It's got to be, you have to be able to like zoom in and see the part and see the roots of the hair and see all the strands blowing in the wind and like all this stuff. And no, you don't.
Hmm.
I understand how hair works now, and so when I go about my work, I paint much larger shapes, and I block in large portions, large sections of hair, and that works for me. And I suggest with small strokes after I have a hairstyle blocked in as like a shape. I
Hmm.
suggest and give the impression of hair, but I really thought that I had to spend like 12 hours painting a hairdo when I first began, and then I realized that doesn't really come naturally to me. And so that's one of
Yeah.
those moments in my own journey where I was like, I think that everyone does this type of way, but I don't think that that's right for me. And I'm going to have a basic understanding of how the hair works, and I'm going to keep that in mind, but I am going to do it the way that feels good in my heart to do it. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that as time goes on, you will realize that there's no Harry Potter owl that arrives one day and says, "Ta-da! Today's the day you find your style." It doesn't
Exactly.
it doesn't really work like that, even though I think that we all imagine a day, especially if we're struggling to find it currently. We all imagine a day when we can just like look at our work and think, "Dang, that's my work and that's
Hmm.
visually recognizable as my work." I will tell you, in my career, and I've talked to many, many others who felt this way, uh, everyone else recognized my style before I did. Everyone else.
Oh, that's funny.
Everyone else. And they were like, yeah, that's your work. And yet, still to this day, sometimes I look at my own portfolio and I think that it looks like it's illustrated by like 20 other people
Uh-huh.
doing their own thing, because I remember every step and struggle and portion of that piece that really was difficult for me to do, where I had to problem solve and all of that. And, but I think that what other people are seeing is my own creative interpretation of the basic fundamentals.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna scroll through chat. I'm gonna flip over to you so that everyone can watch you color in these wicked, awesome pants.
I
And
know,
I'm gonna
right?
scroll through chat and make sure that I answer all of our questions and stuff. Let's see how to master our skills and tips. Okay, so tips for like mastering fundamentals, Hassan. I would say when it comes to the fundamentals, I honestly, and this is a new thing that I've kind of come to just recently in the last year or so.
Mm,
I would approach mastering the fundamentals of painting and illustration the same way we teach you here on Adobe Live to approach learning an Adobe app. If you're going to
mhm.
learn Photoshop because you want to illustrate, you don't need to learn every single detail about the program. You know, if you want to learn how to draw characters, I don't think that you also need to learn how to draw cars. You don't need to
Yeah,
learn every single thing there is about drawing and painting in order to draw and paint what you're passionate about. I would pinpoint the things that bring you the most joy, that you naturally gravitate towards the most. When you imagine yourself drawing, when you think about the future of your creative journey, and I would look up the fundamentals for those things and remember as you go forward with that journey into looking for those fundamental lessons. Remember that just because somebody on YouTube says that that's the way you should do it, and that's the way that they do it, and that's the way everyone is doing it, doesn't mean that that's going to end up being the way that's best for you. Learn those things, watch those videos, and take in that information. Don't be afraid to experiment, because I think that I've heard a lot of YouTubers say this is how you have to draw, you know, heads. And I
mhm.
don't draw heads like any of those tutorials told me to do. I did it a few times, and I tried to work with that, but I eventually elaborated on it for myself. Um, do you have any points or tips to that? Like just looking out, searching for tips and where to start when it comes to wanting to draw or paint?
Actually, going back to your point about passions, I think that that's really important, figuring out what you're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
because like for me, I actually started keeping a list of all of the things that I love, because when I would hit art block, it's so easy to just forget like
Yeah.
all of the things that you really like,
Mm-hmm.
and really like drawing, or the type of work that you're interested in getting in the future. Like if you're trying to build up your
Yeah.
portfolio, like you
Mm-hmm.
think about like your dream clients that you want to work with, and maybe the kind of art that, you know, relates to your passions and those clients at the same time. So you know, like for me, for instance, you know, I really love gardening and farming, and I would like to work with farming companies and or the national parks or stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I keep that those kinds of things in mind when I go to illustrate. um so yeah, so figure out what you would like to draw. Also, another thing, for me, I have not been able to, all in my entire career so far, been able to get an agent, and I'll tell you why. They always tell me that they love my style, but
Mm.
I need to draw more humans. Now,
Oh.
what I've been told by a lot of artists is to not inundate my portfolio with things that I don't enjoy drawing. So I
Mm-hmm.
haven't. And so I am now in the process of finding that little bit niche, my little corner, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in the industry, in that will you know, appreciate what
What
I
you do.
do draw.
Yeah.
Yes, what I do draw and the clients that I do want to work for. So if you're feeling pressured to like draw things that you don't necessarily want to draw, I would definitely highly suggest really pinpointing the things that you do really love drawing.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, and I think that that really leads into another question from Chantel, who says, "How do you make a career out of illustration?" Which I think is an excellent question. I think that's what most people wonder, right, when they're pursuing this as like a serious job. I would say, to be honest, my initial like movement into art as a career was filled with a lot of moments where I was working on jobs that I did not necessarily enjoy doing, but people were asking me for those things. I got a lot of gigs designing websites. I got a lot of gigs drawing stuff for people's Twitch channels, like user
Hmm.
icons and things like that. And it didn't really give me a lot of joy. I was always wanting to do other things, and I would say take the jobs that you can get, and work the things that you can work, and add skills to your Batman utility belt so that at any given time you have, like a wealth of knowledge and skills to draw on, so that you can take whatever jobs you need to take when you need to take them. But I would also say to, follow Cody's advice heavily, when she says that, your portfolio is what people are going to hire you for. Whatever's in there is what people are going to see and what they're going to ask you for. So I would say, put some time into discovering what your passion is, what it is that you want to be doing with your art, and
Hmm.
spend a little bit of time um, creating work that matches that vibe, and I guess, doing personal projects and stuff. That was a big thing for me, is that I would do the jobs that I didn't want to do. And then I slowly started filling my portfolio also, when I had the time, with personal projects that really reflected what I wanted to be doing with my time, until I could
Hmm.
phase those pieces out that reflected what work I had to do, and replace them with work I wanted to be doing into the future. If
Hmm.
that makes sense. And I'm going to check
Yeah.
our time here. It looks like we got maybe 4 minutes. I can't
Oh my
believe
gosh.
how fast this went. I'm gonna pop over and give him a preview of your werebear. He is so cool. He's so cool. Honestly, the cutoffs is what's doing it. Because he's got a super cool shirt. He's got like a really scary face that is also super adorable. But those cutoff shorts are just too cool for school.
So
Um,
stylish.
yes, and I'm gonna scroll through here because I think I saw some other questions that I just um, want to make sure that we cover in our last moments. Becca says all the juicy pro tips here. Yes, yes. Steve says danger of getting typecast like a one-note actor. Honestly, that's a really great analogy, though. People who they act in one role that's super iconic, and then a lot of
Hmm.
times when they're looking for gigs, they're getting jobs that are wildly similar to that first foray into
Right.
acting. And I think that that's a really good point. What you show the world is what they're going to know you for, because no one can read your mind. No one knows what it is that you're particularly passionate about unless you show them. And so making sure that I think, like, because what I don't want to do is tell people to make the mistake that I made when I first started my career. And that was, I was like, I want to draw and I want to stream, and that's all I want to do. And so that's all I'm going
Hmm.
to do. But the thing is, when you first start out and nobody knows who you are, and you don't have a reputation built for a certain kind of creativity, a lot of people are probably not going to hire you for that, because you don't have a portfolio that says that you can do it. So you
Hmm.
do what you can, and then, like I said, start phasing it out, because trying
Yeah.
to only do the one thing you're passionate about right off the bat without planning and working smart, um, I struggled. I couldn't
Hmm.
convince people that I could do that job I was passionate about, because I didn't have any examples to show them. You
Yeah.
know, and that was a big deal. The bear is upset. There is no dessert, Steve says.
Me too.
Yeah, honestly. Um, but yeah, we are coming up here on the end of our stream. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Again, I can't believe how fast that went.
Yeah. Wow.
Cody and I were just saying before the stream started, she was like, I have a feeling that this is going to end up going a lot quicker than we think, because that's always the case. Even if you don't think so when you start. But it's been a blast. I really appreciate everyone asking questions. We got Annika posting our links in the chat if you guys would like
Woo!
to give us a follow. We would love to hear from you. Again, Cody, in our last few moments, why don't you let everybody know where they can get the information to follow along with your October prompts? We got about 30 seconds.
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Codi Bear, Codibear, and it is my pinned post on my profile. If you just go to my profile, it's going to be the first one right there. You can see the Beartober list, hashtag Beartober22, if you would like to see more entries. We have over 1,000 entries now, so already after
Oh!
the first week.
Yes, I'm not surprised. And again, Cody's Instagram is a wonderful, fabulous place. And if you haven't checked it out, you need to. I go there all the time. And you guys can follow me on Twitter at VooDooVal or take a look at my Behance profile here. But that is all the time we have today, folks. We do have to take off. It has been an absolute blast. Cody, thanks for hanging out with me today. This was so fun.
Thanks, guys.
And we will see you folks next time. Adios.
Bye.